Hi and welcome back. Now, in this video, I want to do an overview of this board. I want to show you what all the major sections are. I'm not going to explain how everything works, but I do want to identify what's on the board and what all these sections are for. So to get started, I'll just turn these down. We're going to start once again at the top of the board, where we've got a whole series of inputs. Now the board is organized like most mixing consoles, where we have input channels. And the input channels are in columns that start with this knob labeled mic line, which is the input gain, and it follows down all the way to a fader. There's a fader for every channel. This is a 32 channel board, and you'll also see channel numbers run all along the faders. There's also channel numbers right here in the middle section of the board. There's channel numbers on the top of all these encoders. There's channel numbers again up here. And all of these channel numbers will help you identify which channel you're actually looking at. So if we go to channel 1, you'll see that it just sort of follows right down the line. Well, this is how almost all mixing boards are organized, so that's not particularly surprising. So anyway, if we start for each channel, you'll see that we have an input section. And on the input section, which is this area right up here, you'll see we have a gain knob labeled mic line. You can turn that up or down. It affects both the microphone input and the line input from the back of the board. You have the opportunity for the mic input to turn on 48 volt power. That's for powered condenser mics that actually need power from the board to operate. You can do this by channel. If you hit the button, it lights up nicely. You can see it in the dark. Now these D buttons are for the digital input assignment if you're routing audio for playback off of a digital audio workstation on your computer. They effectively switch each input from the hardware jacks on the back to a digital stream coming off your computer. Also, it redirects the input. So if you have digital on, it's coming back from a computer through the FireWire input or one of the other input options on this board, and not through the physical jacks on the back of the board. So if this is on, it effectively mutes the signal from the microphone. Now let's take a look at the next section. This is the aux output section. All of these blocks here are the overall gain or the overall level for an aux out. There's an aux out jack on the back that you can run to powered monitors, and typically the auxes are used for your monitor mixes. They can alternatively be used as effect sends. But one of the things to be aware of is that these are the overall level of the outputs. It's not how you set up an aux mix. The aux mix, it's actually set up on the encoder knobs that are located down here. Each aux has the ability to do select, mute, solo, and then actually set up the mix. You hit the mix button and set up the mix here, which we'll show you in later videos in detail. Now way over here, we have the 4 effects processors. These are the effects buses, and the first 2 are for reverb effects, and this is the overall level of those being sent to the main out. We also have 2 delays, so we have delay processors. Really, with these 4 effects, you've got almost everything you need for live sound, and we'll be covering that as well. Same on all the boards in this series. They all have these 4 effects buses labeled A, B, C, and D. So that completes this section. Now as we move down, we've got the big blue section. This is the fat channel. The fat channel allows you to do gating, compression, limiting, equalizing on all of the channels, along with some other channel controls, including a high-pass filter per channel. It also allows you to do panning. There isn't a dedicated pan knob per channel. Whichever channel you select gets the controls for the fat channel. So if you needed to pan something, then you would hit select and then operate this control. That would pan the kick into the left output channel in the stereo main. And we'll cover this also coming up as we get into all the various controls on the board. And we also have the ability to do a variety of other things for the channel that aren't EQ and dynamics, but you can assign to the outputs. You can also use these controls to load and store presets for individual channels. Now this section over here is really a continuation, and it's on the 32 channel board only, because the 24 channel board ends right here and the 16 channel board ends right up in this area here. But these are just an extension for the aux mixes. It takes it all the way out to 32. These are also used on the graphic EQs. The mute groups and the mix scenes are unique to this board, to the 32 channel board, and we'll be covering that as well. But it gives you a really quick way to organize a series of mutes or to quickly recall scenes, which is a full setup for the board. Now as we move on down the board in the channel section, you'll see for each channel we also have select, solo, mute, and those are dedicated controls, solo and mute for every channel. You just hit the solo button to solo it. There's a lot of different ways you can use that. Mute just turns that channel off. We've got 100mm faders per channel down here. Now the next major section of the board is what I would call the master section. That's the final column over here. Now starting at the top we have the USB jack. This is used for firmware updates, and it's also used for Wi-Fi for the networking capabilities. And we have a lamp for a little lamp which you can connect here. We've got the metering. These are metering for the channels, which is the level meter and a gain reduction meter. This is metering for the subgroups. The subgroups are these faders down here that you can use for sub mixes or alternative output mixes, and we'll cover that as well. The left and right main meters. Now this section here is labeled digital effects and master control. If I select an effects processor, then you can select the effects preset or the patch that you have set up on here. Scene allows you to manage and store scenes for the board, and system gives you control for a wide variety of setup things, which we'll be going over with as we cover this board. Here is control for meters. This specifically controls using the LED bar graphs all along here as input or output meters. We have a video coming up very soon on that. There's two additional channels. There's stereo channels without mic preamps. You can run maybe your effects returns through, or you could hook up any external devices or keyboard or something like that. Just auxiliary inputs A and B. These are the levels and the select buttons for those. Solo controls the level of the solo bus. So if you're soloing into your headphones, you'll need to use this. 2-track in is a dedicated input for music. Usually you would use this for music off of an iPod or an iPhone, or some sort of a playback mechanism for playing during breaks. And then this is the control section for your headphones. This is the overall headphone level and the control room monitor level. It's labeled monitor here, but this is really for control room monitors in a studio or fixed setup. And this is the routing for what you want to hear in your phones and your monitors. The phones is controlling the jack that's right here on the front edge of the board. Now over here we have the talkback section. This is for a separate mic input on the back of the board for talkback. This is the level for the talkback mic. And then the routing where you want talkback to go. When you're ready to talk, usually use this to talk to the stage or into the studio. You hit the talk button, then you'd say whatever it is you need to tell them, and then turn this off. These are additional solo, mute, and select buttons for the subgroups, which we won't get into detail on right now. And then over here we have the GEQ button. This is for graphic equalizer. When I turn this on, this section opens up and allows you to dial in a graphic equalizer, basically cutting and boosting at different frequencies in a graphic fashion. Typically use this on the auxes as well as on the main out, and I'll have a video on that coming up as well. This is the select button for the main out. Now one thing I want to show you about the select buttons themselves is that there's a selected channel display right here, and that quickly tells you what's selected. So if you're working in the dark and you just don't even know what you're hitting, you can move along the select buttons and make sure that you're selecting the channel that you would expect. So if I want to select 12, you can see 12 is selected. If I want to select maybe aux output 1, you can see it says A1, and then the subgroup selection shows up here as S1. If I select an effects processor, it's FA. There's FD. If I select the main, it says NA. I'm not sure exactly why NA is for main, but that's how that works. So that is a very quick overview of the controls in the different sections of the Studio Live board. So in the next video, we're going to start breaking this down into the most common workflows that you have on a digital mixer, which is mixing front of house sound, mixing your monitors, or adding effects. So we'll start that in the next video. Thanks for watching.